Abercrombie Kids is bringing the ultimate first day energy back to school. It all starts with on-trend outfits for that front door photo shoot. Plus, the coolest tees, shorts, and jeans to take them through the rest of the year. Get them ready for their close-up. And keep them comfy, too. Make this grade their best one yet. Shop all things back to school, in-store, online, and in the app.
Love espresso, drip coffee, and cold brew? With the Ninja Luxe Cafe, if you can crave it, you can brew it. Espresso, balanced. Drip coffee, rich. Cold brew in a flash. With Barista Assist technology, you brew with no stress and no guesswork and make perfect silky microfoam hands-free from dairy or plant-based milks. Shop the Ninja Luxe Cafe at ninjakitchen.com.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
This episode is brought to you by Mott's Applesauce. So you're looking for a snack your kid will love and you can feel great about? Give them a Mott's no sugar added applesauce pouch. Made from real, delicious apples and a good source of vitamin C, too. Perfect for tossing in a lunchbox or grabbing for on the go. Mott's. Real apples make real good applesauce. Learn more about Mott's no sugar added applesauce at Motts.com.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Have you ever been listening to a creepy ghost story or haunting history and you're like, damn, this is so enjoyable, but I wish my friends were here so we could experience it together? That's us. We're your girls, and we'll bring the snacks when you join us on I Scream, You Scream, the podcast where we serve up chilling stories with a side of our favorite ice cream.
Every month, we pick a new flavor of ice cream and a new topic to go along with it. Werewolves, poison, cemeteries, you name it. From deep dives into stories we all thought we knew to your real-world experiences, at this ice cream party, we always get to the bottom of the bowl.
Cozy up with us every Tuesday for your weekly scoop of the most chilling histories, mysteries, and paranormal perplexities. Until then, keep it cool.
And keep it creepy.
Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse on your favorite streaming platforms. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. And now, you can find the Red Treehouse on Patreon. Join the Red Treehouse community for as little as $3 per month and receive exclusive member benefits. Simply go to patreon.com/Red Treehouse. Important note: sources for this episode can be found in the show notes. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, I'm going to read you a collection of short horror stories, including 2 real-life stories from Kathryn, co-host of the terrific I Scream, You Scream podcast. This episode will also feature short fiction stories from Rose Black, Jennifer Valdez, and David O'Mahony. So sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, and pay close attention as I read a collection of short horror stories. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. Our first two stories come from Kathryn, co-host of the I Scream, You Scream podcast. Story 1. When I was in high school, I babysat a little girl from the time she was about 3 up to when she was 5 or 6-ish. We'll call her Riley. Her dad worked with my dad, so I often watched her when her parents would go to work parties or events. After I got to know them a bit more, I would come over to help out with Riley while her mother, we'll call her Kathleen, did housework, ran errands, etc. After spending a lot of time with them, I grew to be pretty good friends with Kathleen. She'd confide in me about her marriage, and I learned that she and her husband were not doing well. Retrospectively, I realize it's a bit weird for a grown woman to use her child's high school babysitter as a therapist. But I thought I was super grown up at 17, so I didn't realize this was weird. I did realize, however, that there were issues in her marriage before she even told me, because the energy in their house was always quite dark and heavy. You could just tell there was a lot of fighting. One night, I came over to babysit so they could go to a work event. As soon as I arrived, I could tell they had been arguing right before I got there. The air was so heavy. Riley was really quiet while we were playing that night. She didn't say much and seemed kind of detached. Eventually, it was time for bed, so I took her upstairs and tucked her in. She usually went to bed just fine, but that night she was insistent that I stay with her longer than usual. I asked if she was okay and if she wanted to talk about anything. She just kept looking around the room, and I could tell she was afraid to be alone, but she wouldn't tell me what she was scared of. I stayed with her several minutes after she finally fell asleep just to make sure she was fully out. Then I went down to the living room to watch TV until her parents got home. About a half hour later, I heard a creak on the stairs. I couldn't see the staircases from where I was sitting on the couch, but I could see Riley's shadow on the wall from the entryway light, as it would have been shining behind her from where she was on the steps. The stairs creaked again, and I could see her shadow move lower, as if she had taken another step down the stairs. I figured she was still scared of whatever she had been nervous about before, so I muted the television and said, "Riley, you don't need to sneak. You can come in and watch TV with me if you want." She didn't move or make a sound. I repeated myself so she knew she wouldn't get in trouble for being awake past her bedtime, but still nothing. I got up from the couch and walked over to the entryway where the stairs were to let her know I wasn't mad she was awake. When I rounded the corner, expecting to see her right there, directly to my left on the stairs, there was nobody there. I looked to my right, where her shadow had been on the wall, and it was completely clear. None of the shadows or movement that had just been there moments ago. There is no way she could have gotten back up the stairs and into her bedroom without me hearing her, as the house was extremely old and the stairs were very creaky. I went up to her room to check on her, and she was sound asleep, snoring softly. I'm not sure exactly who it was that I saw. Part of me thinks there was some kind of negative spirit in that house, but I like to believe that whoever I saw on the stairs was someone watching over Riley. Another part of me wonders if that was a piece of her dissociating while she dreamed. The family would eventually move back to their hometown several states away, and the parents did end up getting a divorce. I lost touch with them over the years, but I always wonder what Riley experienced during the few short years she lived in that house, and I wish I could have had the chance to ask her if she ever had any strange experiences before we lost touch. I still think of her often, and just hope she's doing well now, regardless of what she may have experienced when she was little.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Evglis. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in 1 convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Story 2. I was living in Chicago for grad school in 2015. I met my boyfriend at the time about a year prior, but we had been long distance the majority of our relationship. He was originally from Lagos, Nigeria, but going to school in the Caribbean. We had only met when he was in Chicago for a year, taking some time away from school. Anyway, the relationship had been rocky for a while. Pro tip: I don't recommend being in a relationship with someone who lives thousands of miles away unless you have plans to eventually be in the same geographic location, which we did not. Spoiler, we did not make it. Laugh out loud. Anyway, even though we were not doing great as a couple, we very much cared about each other as friends, and I often worried about him being so far away from the friends he had in Chicago and his family in Lagos. After graduation, he was traveling from school back home to Lagos. I was feeling particularly anxious about the flight because he had had some travel issues in the past, so he sent me his flight information and told me to track the plane because he knew it would ease my mind. I had been feeling anxious about being long distance and never fully knowing whether he was safe or okay, and all I wanted was to see his plane land for myself so I could have confirmation everything was fine. It was a red-eye flight from the Caribbean to Nigeria, so needless to say, it was going to be a long night if I was going to stay up to make sure he made it. I was determined to stay awake, but when he was somewhere over the Atlantic, I ended up falling asleep. Eventually, I woke up to what sounded like someone walking along the creaky wood floors of my bedroom. I was only half awake, so I wasn't really registering what I was hearing. After a few moments, I felt a hand gently press against the top of my right foot and give it a little wiggle, as if someone was trying to wake me up without startling me. This of course did not work, and I was very startled, jumping up in bed fully awake. I looked around the room, expecting to see my roommate, who was out of town visiting her family that weekend. When I didn't see anyone there, I figured it was just a weird dream and checked my tracking app to see where my boyfriend's plane was. As I opened the page, I saw the status switch from preparing to land to landed. I'm not sure who it was. but I'm confident that somebody was letting me sleep while they tracked his flight and woke me up just in time for me to see him land safely. Our first fiction story is entitled The Star of Hardy's and was written by Rose Black. I've been a resident of my neighborhood for about 2 years. There's not much to say about it, just a localized suburb area with a gas station, a Walmart, and several fast food places a short walk from my apartment. Speaking of walking, it's an activity I enjoy while playing Pokemon Go. The nearest park is 8 miles away. Unless I get the urge to change things up, I stick to spinning stops that don't require me to burn gas. I have a specific route. On it is a Hardee's, called Carl's Jr. in other states. It's always been a bit of an oddity to me. It's one of those things that I forget about, as it leaves my view like the guy who replaced Billy Mays as a spokesperson, or the state of Idaho. As for Hardee's, every time I've come across one, they're always weirdly situated. They're never beside other restaurants. Instead, they'll be on the outskirts of a store parking lot. At least, that's been the case for the ones I've seen. The one near me is no exception. I'd always walk by it, never noticing more than a few vehicles in the drive-thru, and never the same ones twice. I didn't think much about this until what happened last week. I prefer to exercise during the evening since it's quieter. Also, if I was hungry or thirsty, I could head into Walmart. The other day, I'd gotten blood drawn for an appointment, which meant I was drinking more water than usual. Due to this, I needed to piss like a racehorse during my walk. Unfortunately, a brawl somehow broke out in front of it, and a crowd was gathered, blocking access to the entrances. I don't know much about what caused it other than hearing one of the fighters shout, "That's not what your girlfriend said." Then the other yelled back, "But it is what your sister told me." Needing to evacuate my bladder fast, I scanned my immediate area for the nearest business I could relieve myself. My eyes fell on Hardee's. Figuring their bathrooms were about as well maintained as Walmart's, I walked to the entrance, pulling the door open. The commotion outside morphed into instant silence, as if all noise had been sucked away. I would have noticed this immediately if not for my emergency. Nobody was at the counter, and I didn't hear anyone in the back. Assuming the employees were in the walk-in, I headed to the restroom. A shudder ran through me as excess liquid evacuated my body. It was only then that I noticed how still everything seemed. I left the bathroom. "Welcome to Hardee's, sir. May we take your order?" The sudden words, practically being shouted instead of spoken amid the quiet, made me flinch. A man stood at one of the registers. He was roughly in his mid-30s with dirty blonde hair and a spray tan. A grin wide enough to make me wonder how he wasn't in pain was plastered on his face. "No thanks, I just came in to take a leak." Jacob was the name on his tag. Still smiling, he blinked a few times. "Are you sure? We know you like to walk. That must work up quite the appetite, and there's nothing that satisfies hunger like one of our combo meals. Would you prefer one of our 2-for-1 deals instead?" At this point, I was wondering if I was being pranked or if Jacob was on drugs. Considering the lack of other workers, I was leaning more towards the latter. The last time I ate something from Hardee's was years ago. I remembered it being pretty mid. I'm more of a Wendy's guy, no offense. Jacob's eye twitched slightly. Wanting to end the conversation, I left the building. As I did, he called out to me, "We'll be here. We're always waiting." Other than making a mental note to stay away from that Hardee's, I put the interaction out of my mind. By the time I was back outside, the men fighting were being put in the back of some cop cars, and the crowd was dispersing. Although Jacob was weird, he was right about walking making me hungry. In fact, I was famished. Deciding burgers sounded good after all, I bought some ingredients. At home, I seasoned my patties and put them on the skillet. In another pan, I was caramelizing some onions. I threw on some cheddar, placing the lid on to melt it. After toasting some sesame buns and getting my frozen checkers, called rallies in other states, out of the oven, my meal was ready. As an aside, I found that broiling frozen fries in the last couple of minutes helps crisp them up. I enjoyed my food with a drink of IBC root beer while watching some old Twilight Zone episodes. I don't have junk food often, but I made an exception. I made more food than I needed. Each burger was a double, and I ended up getting full off of fries. Putting the rest of my meal in the fridge, I got ready for bed. I overestimated my hunger and filled up on fries, and only ate one burger. The other I wrapped in foil and put in the fridge after removing the lettuce and tomatoes from it. Those are always a textual nightmare when reheated. I planned on turning the second burger into breakfast food the next day by adding a fried egg and some bacon strips. Checking the time told me it was late and that I should be asleep soon. Getting ready for rest, I brushed my teeth and took a shower. Then yawning, I climbed into bed. That night, I had a weird dream. In it, I was on my usual walk, and I was the only person around. That's what I thought anyway. Then I heard a bunch of people with the same voice ask in unison, "Are you hungry?" Multiple Jacobs in different work clothes stood in front of every business. They were all grinning. There's nothing that satisfies hunger like some tasty burgers. Then they all pointed towards Hardee's. My body acted on autopilot, and I went to it, grabbing the door handle. The inside was far more spacious than I remembered. It stretched into the shadows and was lined with booths and tables. I got the sense it stretched on forever. A yellow rug with a red outline stretched from the entrance to the counter. At the register stood Jacob. "Welcome back, Kevin. Are you ready for me to take your order?" The pictures on the menu were distorted and the words illegible. Shifting my focus back to Jacob, I was shocked to find there were now 2 of him. Blinking, this became 4, and then 8. "Hurry up, Kevin. Our other customers are waiting." Glancing over my shoulder, I saw a line of Jacobs standing behind me. Although they held the same plastered smile, each one was more emaciated than the last. The healthiest in appearance was in the back. He waved at me. The most starved was in the front. His sunken stare was piercing. "Order up," Cashier Jacob declared. Spinning around to face him, my breath hitched. Jacob had become a skeleton. He still had his hair, and his eyes were almost too big for their sockets. In his hands was a tray of food consisting of 2 cheeseburgers, some fries, a large soda, and a milkshake. Something yellow and red squirmed between the patties. "That's our secret ingredient," Skeleton Jacob said. "Would you like to see it?" Regaining some autonomy, I backed up while shaking my head and bumped into a wall of Jacobs. Skeleton Jacob appeared in front of me, holding one of the cheeseburgers. The thing between the patties was squirming more aggressively. Jacob tightened his grip. Then he started lifting the top patty, and that's when I woke up. "Chris, that was weird as hell," I murmured. It was still dark, giving me the sense I hadn't slept for that long. I intended to brush off what I dreamed and keep slumbering. Then my vision adjusted, and to my confusion, a bunch of figures in yellow cloaks with red outlines stood around my bed. What the A funny-smelling piece of cloth was pressed to my face, making everything go dark. Coming to, I found myself in some kind of cave. The particular area I was in had metal bars with a door, preventing escape. Still feeling lightheaded, I shook off my fatigue and tried seeing if there were more captives. There were other cells. However, other than some brief looks, I wasn't able to get those in them to respond. Something told me they were resigned to their fates. Footsteps echoed, and the equivalent of a small army of the cloaked figures came to let everyone out. They made everyone follow them, during which I tried seeing for an opportunity to make a break for it, finding none. We came to a golden star-shaped door with a smiley face ingrained in it and a ruby red flame. One of the figures placed his palm on a scanner, making it slide open. What it led to was a space with a wide yellow brick bridge, with red ones outlining it. Yeah, I know I keep mentioning those colors. I guess those people had specific decor preferences. The bridge stretched over an abyss and reached a star-shaped platform that was the same color as the door. I found that above was about as long. On the platform was someone else in a cloak. The colors of it matched the door, including the smiley face. They lifted their hood, revealing themselves to be Jacob. "Nice of you to join us, Kevin." Fed up, I demanded answers. "What is this place? Why did you kidnap me? Who are all these people, and why are you all so obsessed with yellow and red?" "All in good time, Kevin. But to answer your last question, it's what the Great One likes." Before I could ask who the Great One was, one of my fellow captives was brought forward. A spark of life entered them, and they began thrashing while begging to be let go. They said they'd rather be thrown over the edge than experience what was about to come. Their pleas were ignored as more people were forced to join them. A sudden rumbling growl echoed. Feeling my stomach knot, I wasn't eager to learn what was making this noise. Something rose from the darkness. Nothing could have prepared me for what came next. A fleshy gold triangle with ruby red outlining it poked up from the abyss. Coming fully into sight was the Hardy's logo, or rather, a creature that was the same in appearance as it. When what it was attached to fully appeared, I was stunned beyond belief. Yet its presence alone was making dread course through my veins. It was a giant living version of the Hardy's logo. "What in the actual fuck?" I asked in bewilderment. "Yes, I remember the first time I laid eyes on the Great One," Jacob said. "I too was in awe of His Majesty." He and I had very different ideas of awness. For the purpose of this post, this is a real word. I bet you're wondering how he came to grace us with his presence. Not really. You see, it all began before the Age of Enlightenment. It took me a moment to realize Jacob meant the time before Hardee's was founded. Our founder was sick of the mediocre burgers from Burger King and McDonald's, so he set out to make his own restaurant. Unfortunately, nobody believed in his dream. Every night he prayed to whatever might be listening for what to do until finally he got an answer. Jacob pointed at the Hardy star. Its mouth opened, blowing out smoke. The cloud of it hovered in the air and began swirling with white light until a vision unfolded within it of a man standing in his pajamas. I assumed this was the Hardy's founder. He was staring out his bedroom window at something burning up as it was falling from the sky. It crashed into the woods. Then the vision cut to the founder coming to a smoldering crater. At the bottom was a meteorite made entirely of smooth metal that pulsed with yellow and red light. The founder poked it with a stick, the end of which became instantly burned. He seemed to be trying to decide what to do next when a crack appeared in the object. When it fully spread, the meteorite fell open in two halves. A sudden burst of light made him raise his hand to shield his eyes. Then there was smoke, and something in the object began stirring. All he could make of it was a star-shaped silhouette. Then it lunged, latching onto his face. It was the Hardy's logo, except much smaller. With his screaming muffled, the founder tried yanking it off. His struggle was futile. Eventually he fell to his knees, and the Hardy's logo released him. A wide grin stretched across his face. "Carl Storlorn of the Harding realm, I serve you," he told it and bowed his head to the ground. "And the rest is glorious history. We've served Carl Storlorn, or Carl, ever since," Jacob said when the vision dissipated. "Any questions?" What exactly is the Harding realm? A place of paradise where the worthy are rewarded with a plentiful feast, and the punished must starve as they watch. Real deity or not, these people were out of their goddamn minds. Alright, who are all these people then? I asked, referring to those who had been kidnapped before me. These are the blasphemers, the ones who dared to besmirch his greatness. Be it complaining there aren't enough fries in the bag or lying about their soda tasting funny, we make sure they get exactly what they deserve. Case in point. He gestured to the men they brought forward. No, please, he begged. Jacob sighed while rolling his eyes. I'm sorry, Bill, but you shouldn't have gotten angry when we refused to serve you breakfast foods. Our hours are very clear. It won't happen again, I swear. Carl's eyes opened. Red lasers shot from them, hitting Bill like the tractor beams from a UFO. He was unable to move as he was lifted towards Carl, whose mouth parted. Something from it that resembled a worm, only made of orange light, slithered from it. Bill managed to get out a single shriek when it clamped onto his face. His body twitched. When the process was complete, he was lowered back onto the platform, a grin stretching across his face. He looked at me. It's so beautiful, Kevin. Jacob patted Bill's shoulder. Another embracer of truth, and there'll be plenty others. More people were brought forward. The reasons for their punishment ranged from complaining about not enough napkins to asking why their burgers had cheese even though they asked for none when they hadn't. Each time a soul was claimed by Carl, it was another nail in my coffin. Eventually, it was my turn. Wait, I didn't even do anything. I just used the restroom and left. For the first time, Jacob's smile vanished. Then what's this? Reaching into his cloak pocket, he pulled out the cheeseburger I was saving. Not only did you reject the sustenance he offered, you dared to think you could make something better when you aren't even worth the discarded ketchup packets that end up in our dumpsters. I couldn't believe I was in this situation over a cheeseburger. I was just making myself dinner. You're all insane, and for the record, your cheeseburgers suck. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Are you challenging the Great One? Despite not knowing where things were headed, I agreed. A trial by burger has been evoked, Jacob declared. A what? Getting pushed forward, I stood directly in front of Carl. Jacob handed me my cheeseburger. Jacob peered down at me with eyes akin to rubies, and I felt like something under a microscope. Light poured from his mouth again. I thought I would be lifted as Bill was. Instead, my cheeseburger was taken. Carl ate it, foil and all. Everything was still as his judgment was awaited. Is something supposed to happen? I whispered to one of the cultists, who promptly shushed me. Loud grumbling came from Carl. Wondering if that was normal, not that any of this was, I got my answer when there came murmurs of concern from the cultists. Master, what's wrong? Jacob asked. The foil, someone said. Carl belched. The force of it knocked everyone off their feet, and parts of the cave began crumbling. As he was burping, Carl descended back into the abyss. Not wasting time, I scrambled to my feet, beelining toward the exit and hearing multiple yells of pain as I stepped on backs, calves, necks, and a few people's heads. Don't let him get away, Jacob shouted, rage heavy in his voice. I came to the door from earlier and realized I didn't have a way to open it. Turning around, I saw Jacob with the footprint from one of my shoes on his face. He was quickly closing the gap between us. Knowing that I wouldn't be at my best due to the chloroform and that he wasn't mentally stable, I wasn't confident I could win. Luckily, something dead-legged him and he fell. Then the crowd of those imprisoned came running in my direction, trampling him as they did. God damn, I breathed upon hearing his bones breaking. I told the others about the issue with the door. Someone replied not to worry and held up a disembodied arm with part of the cloak still attached. Considering what these people had gone through, I couldn't hold such acts against them. With it, we were able to bypass the other doors. The last one went to a stone staircase, which led to a trap door above us. Pushing it open flashed us with a yellow light and revealed that we were in the Hardy's dining area. Since nobody had their phones, we had to go back to my apartment. When we arrived, I went through a window that the cultists had forced open. Then I let everyone else in and let them use my phone to call the cops. They had me and the others accompany them when they went to investigate the Hardys. Instead of finding the trap door, there was only packed dirt and some missing flooring where it had once been. Some among us even tried digging to prove our story was real, to no avail. The official story was that what we experienced was a collective drug hallucination. Although I was curious as to how Carl's worshippers managed to cover their tracks so quickly, I didn't try to dispute this, unlike the others. The day after, something compelled me to revisit the Hardys during my walk. It had been abandoned. The logo was gone, aside from an imprint of where it had once been, and the sign was an empty frame. I didn't go in, but I peeked through one of the windows, seeing that the lights were still on and that the equipment was all removed. Feeling a chill despite the summer heat, I decided then to keep my distance from that building. I intended on trying to put the whole mess behind me. This changed last night. I received an email from someone named Carl Thorlorn the Great at yahoo.com. I didn't even know people were still using that site. Here's what it said. Like steam from a freshly grilled burger, the Great One will rise again. When he does, everyone will be taking his orders. Jacob. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that I'll never even think about going into a Hardee's again or a Carl's Jr. for as long as I live.
In the time it takes us to say, we're using Folgers Instant Coffee, seamlessly blended with water and ice. A splash of whatever kind of milk is your thing. And gotta get that caramel drizzle. All to make a toasty, roasty, caramel iced coffee. You could be enjoying it. Every damn sip of it. Damn right. It's Folgers Instant.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
The summer sun hums, and all you crave is something cold and crisp. So you pour it. An icy cocktail made with Tequila Don Julio. Crafted with 100% Blue Weber agave, born under the Mexican sun, and made to be shared when the day runs long and the light gets golden. Shop now at donjulio.com. Please drink responsibly. Don Julio Tequila, 40% alcohol by volume, imported by Diageo Americas, New York, New York.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Our next three stories were written by Jen Valdez. Our first story is entitled Black-Eyed Children. It was on this Halloween night where things changed for Jess, where she became a believer of the paranormal. Jess and her friends decided to stay in on Halloween night, watch movies, play a few games, and have a couple of drinks just to pass the time. Can we play some Jenga? I bought this one off of Amazon and I want to try it, Jen, Jess's good friend, asked while pouring herself a glass of Bartanura Moscato. I'm with it, let's play. Des and Trish both agreed. The girls rounded up their drinks and sat by a small table in the middle of the living room floor. 3 games of Jenga and a couple of shots later, the girls were twisted, giggling and dancing to music. The lights flickered. Jess looked up at the lights in the living room for a quick sec. That was weird. That's never happened before. Maybe it's just a house settling, girl. No big deal. Jen took a sip of her wine. Bitch, the lights flickered. That's creepy. Trish looked up at the lights. Here she goes again, being scared. Jen makes fun of Trish all the time for always being scared of shit. The lights flickered again. Oh, hell no. Tell me now that's not creepy. Trish jumped up and went behind the couch. Small taps came from the door. Are you expecting anyone else tonight? Jen asked Jess. No, I'm actually not. Did you order any food? Trish asked. Everyone checked their phones. My food is still being made. Jen looked at her food app. The knocks were a little persistent this time. The lights flickered again, and the girl screamed. What the hell? Who is it? Let us in. Voices were heard outside of the door. Jess slowly crept to her house door and peeked out the small window. What the fuck? She whispered and looked back at the girls. It's 2 kids, by themselves, but I can't see their faces. When Jess looked back out the window, she was startled and fell back with a scream. Their eyes. Oh my gosh, their eyes. Let us in. The kids spoke in unison. Jess scrambled on the floor to stand up. Their eyes, they're all black, like completely black. The lights went completely out. Let us in. Now there was banging sounds all over the house. The doorknob started to shake. More banging on the door. The girls ran into the kitchen and grabbed weapons. This is some demonic shit. Trish was shook. I got the solution for that. Jess opened the drawer, but it slammed shut on its own. She tried reopening it, but it was stuck. Oh my God! Trish screamed. The house door swung open, and the 2 black-eyed children were standing at the entrance. Wait, what is that? Jess was looking behind the children. A tall black shadow was forming behind them. He's here, Jen whispered from behind the girls. Trish and Jess both turned to look at Jen. What they saw left them in disbelief. Jen was gloriously levitating above them, and her eyes were all black too. She let out a maniacal laugh. What the hell? Jess and Trish got up to run away, but were held frozen in place by some sort of force. Jen welcomed the children and the dark shadow into the house. Come in, Dark Lord. Your new children await you. With that being said, the dark shadow and the black-eyed children walked into the house, and the door slowly closed behind them. Screams of terror were heard within the house as Jess and Trish were torn and dismembered by the children. Morning news. Breaking news. 2 young ladies were found dismembered in this 2-story home. Their bodies were found in pieces. It was a massacre. The detective stated that they found a young woman's head hanging on the chandelier, and the other head was mounted on a broomstick. What's more interesting is that their eyes were completely black. More on this story at 6. Back to you, Ron. Oh yeah, and happy Halloween. Our second story is entitled Driver. 5 a.m. The alarm clock goes off. He slides out of the covers from his bed. He sits hunched over and places his elbows on his knees and rubs his bald head with both hands. He moves down to his eyes, rubs the rest of his face, and strokes his beard. He stands and walks past his full-length mirror. A dark reflection stands in the dim-lit bedroom, but he doesn't notice it. He walks into the bedroom, turns on the shower, lifts the toilet seat, and goes about his business. He shakes and flushes. He steps into the shower and lets the water fall on his head. The bathroom door slowly closes. His ears perk up. He thinks he sees something moving on the other side of the curtain and rapidly slides them open. Nothing. He once again lets the water run over his head. He exhales a deep breath and lathers up. He caught chills down his back as he felt a cool breeze come from nowhere. He slightly turned the hot water knob a little more with his eyes closed. The bathroom just felt colder. He rinsed himself off and was startled when he opened his eyes and saw a dark silhouette standing on the other side of the curtain. He became angry. He opened the shower curtains. A scream was heard. Choking sounds came from the bathroom, and then silence. A moment later, the shower turns off and he walks out of the bathroom. He cracks his neck, adjusting to his new body. Slides on his black sweats, t-shirt, and hoodie. Grabbed his keys from his dresser, looks in the mirror and fixes his beard. He notices the tattoos on his face and smiles. His eyes went from dark to light in just a blink. Off to work he goes. 7 a.m. Your driver has arrived. She grabbed her jacket and book bag and the keys that were hanging on the hook. She took a quick glance in the mirror, fixed her hair, and walked out. She looked at the driver app and saw her ride was right in front of the building. Perfect. She opens the car door, and the strong aroma of men's cologne tickled her nose. Smells good in here, was her greeting when she settled in. No response from the driver. Okay, he's the silent type, no biggie. He pressed the start destination button on his GPS and proceeded to drive. She puts on her headphones and plays her favorite podcast. She stared at the scenery out the window. It was a beautiful spring morning. Ding! Her phone chimed. A text message came in from Trish. She frowns at her phone. This is the only girl I know that loves texting this early in the damn morning, she thought to herself as she texts back her sister. Her focus was now on her phone. The driver noticed a change on the route she was taking on his screen. A new destination was added. He frowned. Looks like she added a stop. Hey, sorry about that. Have to stop and pick up my sister. We work at the same location. Hope that's okay. He looks at her through the rearview mirror and smirks. He presses the OK button and makes a right at the next light. We're headed to your destination now. Next time, let me know ahead of time. You know how I hate doing last-minute shit. She texted Trish back. My bad, sissy. Won't happen again. She leaned her head on the car window and continued looking out at the scenery. She began to slowly doze into sleep. Little did she know, the driver released some sort of gas that smelled like that cologne. She opened her eyes as she felt the car go over a large bump. As she adjusted her vision to the scenery, her phone vibrated. It was Trish. If you didn't want to pick me up, you could have just said that and not make me wait. And now I'm super late. Thanks. What the fuck? She thought to herself. She looked at the time on her phone. She'd been in the cab for over an hour. All she saw was trees and a dirt road. She panicked. Her heart sank into the pit of her stomach. She looked at the driver and saw his eyes through the rearview mirror and screamed. His eyes were pitch black as he continued looking at the road. She didn't notice the man sitting beside her. He was breathing heavy. She was terrified. The man had insanely wide eyes just staring at her. His eyelids seemed to be stuck open. Fresh bloody stitches on his face. Do you know where we're going? The man continued to stare her down. The sense of panic became intense. He has a new destination for you. We'll be arriving shortly. His tone was unsettling. The driver was driving over the speed limit, so jumping out the car was out of the question. She had no idea where she was. She looked at her phone. She no longer had service. Fuck, she cried. Let me out, she screamed. The driver sped up and the man sitting next to her moved closer. He tried to cover her mouth. but she fought him off. She kicked the man in the stomach. As he pulled back from the pain, he tried grabbing her legs. "You'll never get out," the man whispered. She kept kicking and struggling with the man until she kicked him hard enough that his back slammed against the closed car door, and it opened up wide. The man screamed in terror as he flew out of the car and his body rolled onto the ground. The driver stopped the car abruptly. Her body jerked in the back seat. The back door still open. She found her opportunity to escape. The driver came out of the car and started chasing her. She looked back and saw him getting closer. His eyes were pitch black, and he was angry. The man that flew out of the car was on his feet now. He was blocking her way to escape. Now she was stuck between the driver and the strange man with nowhere to go. They were crouched low, like if they were hunting her, like she was their prey. They circled around her and made attack moves to scare and taunt her. She spotted a stick nearby and quickly grabbed it. She swung the stick at the strange man as he lunged at her. She struck him on the face and he yelped like a dog. The driver came up behind her and grabbed her shoulders and spun her around to face him. His eyes were as dark as an abyss. There was no soul left in them. She was terrified. He pushed her onto the ground and climbed on her. He looked at her, examining her face, and then slowly opened his mouth. A black smoke was escaping from his mouth and nose. She screamed as he tried to inject the smoke from his mouth to her. She tried fighting him off, but he was too strong. "Get off me!" she screamed. The strange man stood above her head, looking down at them. A maniacal laugh escaped his mouth. "I told you he had a new destination for you." He laughed uncontrollably. "Stop! Get off her!" A female voice came from a few feet away. The driver stopped and looked back. It was the police and Trish. "Put your hands where I can see them." The cop held out his gun, pointing at the strange man. The driver turned and snarled at the cop and leaped like an animal ready to attack him. He shot one bullet into the driver, and he fell to the ground. The strange man ran off into the dark woods. Trish ran to her sister. "I'm so glad you kept your location on. That's how I was able to find you." She hugged her sister. The driver, his eyes were dark and evil like he had no soul. She was shaken up. Trish turned around to look at the man lying on the ground, but he was gone. All that was left was a trail of black liquid leading into the woods. Our third story is entitled Doppelganger. It was about 2 a.m. when the club was lit, and I was dancing and jumping around with my friends, enjoying the music and just vibing, but I was honestly ready to go home. At about 2:45 a.m., I stopped at the bar to get a bottle of water. I felt a bit dehydrated. The bartender charged me $11 for a bottle. Can you believe that shit? She's lucky I was that thirsty. "Girl, I'm gonna head out. It's too hot in here. I feel like I'm about to pass out," I told one of my friends on the dance floor. "Give me a few minutes. I'll walk out with you." "No, you don't have to. You should stay and enjoy the rest of the night." I begged her, but she wouldn't allow me to leave. "I'm tired too. Just wait for me by the bar." She walked off to tell the other girls we were leaving. I stood by the bar. I looked around at the crowds of people, all the lights flashing, girls dancing and giggling, guys mingling. I felt strange though. I felt like, I don't know, I felt like someone was watching me. But who? This place is packed. I tried calling the bartender over, but stopped waving midway. There in the bar mirror, I noticed someone in the distance, not too far from where I was standing, just standing still, staring at me. I turned to look, but the person wasn't there. What the fuck? Were my only thoughts. It's definitely hot in here, I said to myself. "What did you say?" My friend yelled over the music. "Nothing, let's get out of here." We walked out of the club and felt the cool fall breeze. Perfect Halloween weather. We walked about a block away from the club when my friend stopped and looked around. "What's wrong?" I asked her. Her eyes surveyed her surroundings well. "I feel strange, like someone is watching us." She kept looking around. We kept walking, a little quicker now. "Someone was watching me in the club." I just blurted it out. My friend stopped walking. "Seriously? And you tell me this shit now?" I didn't think it was anything serious, but now I feel eyes on me again too. In the distance, they both saw what looked like another woman, but she was just standing still, just staring at us, but we couldn't see her face. "Come on, let's keep walking." We walked for about 2 blocks when we decided to stop and turn around to see if the coast was clear. It wasn't. The woman was following us, but this time she was a little closer than last time they saw her. But now she was breathing noticeably heavy, as if she was running. "What do you want?" I yelled at her. She said nothing, but just kept breathing. She then started to walk slowly towards us until she stood under a shining light pole. "What the hell?" My friend whispered and then looked at me and pulled away from me. "What the hell is going on? Who are you?" My friend walked away, stumbled, and fell on her butt. I slowly turned my head, neck cracking as it turned, and I looked down at her. She was so confused. I smiled a wicked smile, a wide, wicked, sharp-toothed smile. "Run!" the other woman screamed.
This episode is brought to you by Marshalls, where you never have to compromise between quality and price. The buyers at Marshalls hustle hard, working to bring you great deals on brand name and designer pieces. Because Marshalls believes everyone deserves access to the good stuff. Visit a Marshalls store near you or shop online at marshalls.com.
Una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. 8 configuraciones diferentes, intensidad ajustable, además es calefaccionado. Y se siente tan bien. Sí, una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. Y 2, bueno, aún más. Pero cuando esas sillas de masajes vienen con un auto, se vuelven bastante prácticas. El nuevo Volkswagen Tiguan 2025 con funciones premium como los asientos delanteros con masaje disponibles. Solo parece extravagante.
It's summer. Time to enjoy long days, lazy nights, and great food. Because Uber Eats has deals all summer long. So, when hunger strikes, don't sweat it. Delicious deals are just a tap away on Uber Eats. Enjoy all your favorite grocery items delivered straight to you. Get ice cream, soda, and snacks from your favorite stores like Wegmans and CVS and make the most of every moment. Now that sounds like a good summer. Order now on Uber Eats. Terms apply. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
On top of building this fake volcano for months, I give my daughter Smarty Pants vitamins to support her brain health. So her science fair project sounds more like and less like. And while I may say it's not a competition, of course it's a f***ing competition. Choose Smarty Pants vitamins to support your kid's brain health and save the science fair. Shop on Amazon, smartypantsvitamins.com, or at Target today.
Our last story is entitled Contain and Control and was written by David O'Mahony. Bess rested one hand on the plexiglass as the other hovered over the incinerator switch. Her heart was rattling and her breathing came in ragged fits. When she swallowed, it was hard like bitter tears. She shivered. The window ran the height of the room and had been made thick enough to keep the dead at bay, but it wasn't thick enough to make what she had to do any easier. She had spent more than 2 years working in the basement beneath a brutish gray building that stretched acres in every direction. Laboratory C6, it was called officially. But while it had no shortage of equipment, the tech was only used for one thing: interrogation. Unofficially, they called it the torture chamber. The arrangement was simple. The guys in slate uniforms with the black body armor captured the ghoul, or the revenant, or the vampire, and Bess Coffey and her team tried to pry whatever secrets they could out of it. Usually the dead looked like ordinary folks. Many of them held jobs, even had families. They were brought in from all over the country. The government, or the agency. Bess, trained as a chemist and once an advanced interrogator for a crime syndicate, had been recruited through so many intermediaries it wasn't clear who was calling the shots, had long given up studying the causes. Countless groups had been studying the dead for centuries after all. They had pivoted now to containment and control, so much as was possible. So the dead were dragged in, dumped in that little room with the stone furniture behind the one-way plexiglass screen, and drugged and quizzed or hammered until they gave up some information about nests or covens. What happened then was beyond Bess's pay grade. Every second day, grim-faced men in colorless suits came to download the latest data and reports. They seldom spoke, though recently they had seemed harried, as if desperate for answers to a question Bess hadn't been told. "This isn't going to work unless you tell me what you're looking for," she'd said to them, over and over, getting nothing more than a grunt and a glance in return. They were military men, judging by the way they carried themselves, but didn't even have lanyards to show their identities. Bess presumed they were happy with her work because nobody said otherwise. She was good at getting details. Different serums made different entities pliable. They had to be managed and balanced constantly, though. Compound 6 put ghouls into a suggestive state, but 20 minutes after it was metabolized, the ghoul needed a dose of Compound 4 to prevent psychosis. A blend of Compounds 3 and 9 worked on revenants, but Compound 5 killed them outright unless smoothed by a half dose of Compound 7. And when the drugs failed, more brute tactics were required. Bess had learned how exactly to leverage suffering on each individual for maximum results. Ghouls didn't really feel pain. They needed to be starved. Revenants were hurt by grave dirt and holy water. Vampires were trickier. The longer they went without blood and sleep, the more irrational and more dangerous they became. And there were many subtypes who all reacted differently. They didn't fear death or pain in the usual ways, while some of the older and more powerful ones could bewitch and charm their way out of almost anything. Almost. Nobody who ended up in the torture chamber saw the sun or moonlight again. They were too dangerous. When the work was done, Bess or one of her confederates would go into the control room and flick the heavy steel switch high up on the wall, reducing the whole thing to ash. For 2 years, the work had been steady but occasional. Bess hadn't minded. The pay was quite exceptional, and she had been able to spend serious, unbroken time with her husband Francisco. They had finally been able to take that honeymoon in France, 3 years after getting married. Neither of them had to worry about the gang war spiraling out of control again. But recently, the workload had spiked, so much so that she hadn't felt able to leave the building in 3 months. Whether it was the economic crash, a rash of new diseases, or a bevy of hidden nests that had grown out of control, Bess's team had gone from dealing with one of the dead every few days to more than one on some days. And the dead had grown angrier, more resistant to sedatives, more feral. The vampires were the worst. They were evolving, Bess thought, or a subspecies had risen to dominate the new population. Either way, they no longer tried to charm their way out of the situation. They became savage at the slightest provocation, their features, normally pale but so ordinarily human, becoming twisted and disjointed, lips and gums retreating to expose the canines even as their eyes and skin became hypersensitive to ultraviolet light. Bess's job had become less about interrogation and more about probing for weaknesses. The new species, if that's what it was, had proven 3 times more virulent and could shrug off even the most devastating stun gun blasts. The only time the men in the colorless suits said a word to her was when there was interest, quote-unquote, from above, in potential super soldiers, if they could be controlled. "We could win the war," they said. Bess thought it an insane suggestion, But there were so many wars now, she convinced herself that in some way she could save lives. So far, the efforts to keep them under control had failed. Bess had tried dozens of variations of serums, and they had only partially worked. As soon as they failed, when they wore off and the bloodlust came back even stronger than before, she torched the room and waited for the hygiene team to sweep away the ashes. The cruelty had become routine, almost formulaic. She wondered, in those few moments when she had time to herself, if she was becoming a monster. What if it had become airborne, she thought? It would explain the surge in the population, how fast it had mutated, why she felt half dead herself. She found herself checking her complexion and any reflective surface, pulling her lips up to check if her canines had begun to grow. She flicked them with her tongue, examining the sharp points she swore had not been there before. Her eyes were changing color, she fancied, shifting from gray to green. And yet, she swore it was all in her head. She had dealt with so many vampires now, she was almost immune to it. But it must be affecting her somewhere. Interrogation had become more about disposal than getting information. But this night was different. The vampire on the other side of the screen had broken free of his restraints and killed 3 security staff. It had been a trap, she realized in horror as she watched. It had come in docile, as if stunned from blows to the head, only to turn on its captors the second they dropped their attention. She saw it rip the head off the young guy from Wisconsin and bathe himself in the man's blood, a sick, leering smile on his face the whole time as he watched her horror mount. She had seen that smile hundreds of times before. It had turned into the broken monster of a thing before her now. It was Francisco. Bess sighed, her hand hovering over the incinerator switch, even as every instinct screamed for her to stop what she was doing. "Are you going to do it?" It was her assistant, Astrid, a flaxen-haired Swede who was almost as grim as her when it came to the work. "Or do you want me to?" Just give me a minute." Bess couldn't get her heart rate under control. Perspiration pooled on her palm and at the small of her back. Being watched so intently by Astrid didn't help. "Stop looking at me, okay?" Astrid spread her hands and took a few steps back, looking at the floor in an exaggerated show of acquiescence. "It's not him, you know." "What?" "Francisco. It's not him anymore. You know this." "I know, Astrid. Jesus, I know all this. I'm the one who trained you in, remember?" Astrid muttered something vague and picked papers up off a nearby table, flicking through them just for something to do. Bess eyed the pulse in the younger woman's throat, wondering if the thumping that filled her ears was her own heartbeat or that of her colleague. Bess knew she was right. Once they turned, they were no longer the person they used to be. Even in the old days, when they'd been far more human than they were now, they were still different people, wearing a mask of the everyday to hide their appetites and new lusts. But still, every instinct screamed that it was still Francisco, the only one outside the team who knew even a fraction of what they did down here. Bess's blood ran cold at the sudden thought that maybe he had been sent to try and cripple her work from the inside. That couldn't possibly be it, could it? The observation room was mostly dark, apart from the mottled green of emergency lights. Francisco had retreated to the furthest corner, his arms folded tightly across his chest like furled wings. He was silent and still, the only sign of life being that sick smile that followed her whenever she shifted in the window. There was a hunger to it. For the first time in years, she felt afraid. "It's a unique opportunity," she said over her shoulder eventually, chewing down frayed emotions and the bitter stabbing pain in her stomach. "We've never had a subject that we knew before." "So?" asked Astrid. And without looking, Bess could tell she was rolling her eyes in that frustrating way she had. "So maybe we can get through to him that way. Maybe I can," she added quickly. "You're stalling. Go to hell. We're already there. Listen, I can guess what you're hoping for. You're hoping 4 or 5 of those security types come charging in, and somehow put Francisco down for you. Take the decision out of your hands. And I don't blame you, really, I don't. But you know you have to do the right thing. Isn't that what you kept telling me when I got here? We're doing the right thing, you'd say, and then flick the switch and walk away without looking. Bess nodded. Any word from upstairs? Their section of the facility had been shut off as soon as the alarms went off. It was standard procedure to prevent the spread of contagion, though the main security office should have made contact by now. Nothing. I don't think help is coming, Bess. They'll come. Astrid shook her head slowly and sighed. The coffee machine's empty, and the vending machine. I tried to get upstairs to find something to eat. All the doors were sealed. This is what happens during a lockdown. This was before the alarms went off. Something's happened upstairs. Out of reflex, Bess pulled her phone from a back pocket, but this deep in the building, her signal was intermittent at best. It wasn't even connected to the Wi-Fi, though. That was unusual. Are you on the Wi-Fi? No, we don't even have the local network on the computers. What? Why the hell didn't you say anything? I did, twice, but you were too busy staring at Mr. Used-to-be Francisco. Bess pulled her lips back like a threatened animal getting ready to bite as she turned on Astrid. Behind her, in the gloom she wasn't watching, Francisco imitated her sneer, even though he could not have heard or seen her through the window. You can be really awful, Beck. Astrid sighed and shrugged. I'm only doing what you taught me. Separate, dissociate, keep emotion out of it. Yeah, well, it's not your husband in there. It's not yours either. I keep telling you. I don't want to hear it, Bess shouted. They both jumped as Francisco burst from his corner to hammer on the window, leering in at them like a hunter toying with its prey. His face was drained of all color now, his eyes a menacing emerald in the emergency lights. For a moment he bared his teeth, now fully erupted canines like daggers, and sniffed the air as if trying to catch their scent. His lips moved then, over and over, beckoning her toward him with one blackened, ragged finger. He's saying something, said Astrid. Turn the mic back on. Bess ghosted the hand that had been on the window toward the audio switch, low down on the left to avoid being mistaken for the incinerator. The microphone was never supposed to be off while a subject was in the chamber, but she hadn't been able to stomach hearing him gorge himself on the desiccated and desecrated corpses that lay discarded on the floor. Their blood was still damp on his face. Bess's hand hesitated. He was looking right at her now, lips still soundlessly rippling. Closing her eyes, she flicked the switch and the audio blared into the room. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. It was a broken mockery of his voice, but it was still unmistakably him. Astrid's lips parted to speak, but the words evaporated as Francisco began banging his head on the plexiglass. Slow, hard, heady thumps, his lips forming a blood-stained violation of the smile he had given Bess over so many dinners, so many roses, so many nights alone together before they turned out the lights. The plexiglass began to crack. Astrid cried out. It shouldn't crack. It wasn't supposed to crack. Bess just breathed, the hammering on the window becoming dull and distant. Astrid's screams becoming soft echoes, heard as if through a mountain of blankets. Francisco slammed his head into the glass one more time. A heavy shard crashed to the ground at Bess's feet. He thrust an arm through, faster than he had ever moved in life, the blood-slicked fingers a hair's breadth from her throat. He howled at her as she dodged back just out of reach, howled as he grasped the rest of the glass with his other hand and began to pull shards away, immune to how they slashed at his flesh. He no longer smelled of cinnamon and oud wood. Now he just reeked of death and the early grave. His eyes were no longer full of irreverence and light. Now they were just deadlight staring at a woman who was no longer his love, but just his next meal. He's no longer Francisco, she said to herself. He's just another test subject. And how long before I do this to myself, she wondered. With a long, slow exhale, she pulled the incinerator switch, closing her eyes and looking away as the orange flames poured down from the ceiling. What did you think of these terrific short horror stories? Comment or email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Jen Valdez, Rose Black, David O'Mahony, and Kathryn for sharing these stories. And make sure you follow I Scream You Scream wherever you stream podcasts. Kathryn and Gina are terrific storytellers. As we turn down the lights on this episode, make plans to join me next time as I read a collection of Poe. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.